are you doing today? I know you just woke up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I literally just woke up like not even 20 minutes ago. I honestly forgot about the interview. That was today. I forgot it was today, but I'm good.
You're awake enough to do.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I showered, so I'm up.
Well, um, I think we have a few other indie authors in here I was seeing, so that's really cool. I need to stop messing with my phone so it'll stop shaking.
Yeah, I have to hold mine. I don't have a stand.
Oh no, you don't have anything like you can prop it up on? Is your arm gonna get
No,
tight?
I don't. I don't.
Oh no.
It's all right.
Well, um, do you want to tell the people that are here about your book?
Sure.
Questions.
So this is my book, my baby. Um, Brand new. Uh, When Did Hearts Beat is a vampire romance about a workaholic who basically falls in love with a stripper vampire, and he ends up becoming a vampire hunter in order to save her from her maker, who basically comes back in her life and wants her as his bride.
And I,
That's basically it.
as soon as I, he's like, please goodbye.
But yeah, it's available on Amazon and it'll be available Barnes and Noble on November 6th. So
I don't know if I'm brave enough to try to do the whole Barnes and Noble thing. I think I'm just all I gotta do is go on Amazon, hit publish, and be done with it.
yeah, it's always been a dream to have my books on bookshelves. So I kind of just threw myself in the deep end. So we'll see how it goes.
Hey, Brooklyn. Just gets
I'm sorry.
this lady, Brooklyn. She keeps hitting the like button. I just said thanks for all the likes.
Oh,
Okay, so I just got some questions for you then.
sure.
When did you realize that you wanted to be a writer? Were you like a kid recently, or?
Um, when I was about 15, um, Lord of the Rings was kind of a huge inspiration for me. Um, it's what kind of made me fall in love with not only fantasy but world building in general. I just kind of loved how Tolkien used such a variety of what's his word I'm looking for? I guess diversity, you can say. Um, I just kind of fell in love with fantasy and I wanted to become a writer ever since. I started with basically fan fiction. Um, Harry Potter was kind of like my first fan fiction that I ever started writing. It wasn't until later on I actually started doing my own works and became serious about wanting to become an author.
I think I need to have my nerd card taken away because I've never actually read. I've watched the movies.
Well, I have to be honest. I haven't really read the books either. I've only watched the movies. Um, but I did have a collection of all three books and kind of just sitting on my shelf.
They're trophies. Look at these beautiful
Yeah,
things. I've never read.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So I started off with fantasy, then I just kind of just started slowly graduating to more modern fantasy. But I switch back and forth between high fantasy and modern fantasy.
Okay. So, what inspired your latest book? What made you
Um,
write a script?
Honestly, kind of Twilight was like a huge deal, especially when it came out. I remember in high school when it first came out, and I was like a huge Twihard. Well, not a huge Twihard, but like kind of getting there. I read all four books back front to back, and kind of just wanted to make a vampire book. Um, but as I got older, I didn't really think that vampires were the end thing. So I kind of just sprayed away from that until a few, like, I think it was 3 years ago. I was watching Twilight, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and write a vampire book. And my wife kind of inspired me to write a vampire book as well. Um, the whole vampire stripper thing, I don't know where that came from. It was just like, let's make a vampire stripper. We've never really had one of those before, so um,
Super
you
interesting.
always see that yeah, you always see like the vampire is like a rock and roll guy or a really hot guy or something like that. So it was kind of, I kind of wanted to do a twist, and considering that I'm a male writer, I don't really write from the female point of view as much. I mostly stick to writing the male perspective because you don't really see male perspectives in the romance genre. It's usually from the um, women's point of view. So I kind of wanted to do that little twist.
I like that answer.
So
So
far, readers are liking it.
I haven't read it, and I know I'm gonna like it because I just your videos and the description of it. I just know I'm gonna like it. Thanks, Michelle. Okay, how do you handle writer's block? You get writer's block a lot.
um, I do, especially when I'm working too much or um, going through a depression episode. Um, writer's block hits a lot. Um, the way I get over it is I honestly just push through it. My wife is usually a big inspiration. She's usually telling me to get up and write something else because she's usually my first reader. So if I'm writing something and I haven't finished it yet and she's liking it, she tells me to get my butt in gear to finish it. So um, she's usually a big inspiration when I have writer's block, and she usually helps me come up with ideas and character names and world building stuff too. So um, short answer, my wife, but that's a long answer.
That's great. I deal with writer's block in a very unhealthy way. Start a new book.
I tend to do so as well. Like for instance, I have like 3 or 4 projects that I've just started in like the span of 2 weeks, and I have not completed any of them. Um, it's kind of like my brain just goes, "Oh, a new idea, just do this," and then my wife gets mad because what was that?
Squirrel brain. That's what I. That's what.
Yeah, yeah. It's not fun. It is just like I want to go back and finish these stories, but then I have a new story in mind that I want to do, and it's just like when my wife gets mad because she reads half of it and she's like, "You need to finish these stories before you start a new one."
I need to know what happens.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Especially if it's a spicy, smutty book, she really gets wants me to finish it.
That's great. At least you have somebody that's like rooting you on, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. Uh, so you already said that like she kind of helps you with like naming characters and stuff, but other than that, how do you name your characters and come up with names and stuff?
Honestly, generators. I just type in character name generators online, and I scroll through names. I usually write a list. Um, and so I'll have like a list of 10 names that I like, and then I'll have my wife choose 5 of them, and then I go back and then I choose another 3, and then she chooses a 3, and then it kind of just goes down from there. So it's kind of like a tally list that I keep. Um, and if it's a name that I like for one story that I don't like for another one, I'll just use that name for a different story, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I use a combination of like fantasy name generator, go through just
Yeah.
until I find one that speaks to me. Sometimes I'll change the spelling.
Yeah, Don John is like a fantasy type D&D generator that really helps a lot. It has like a whole bunch of world building stuff that I usually use for my writing and world building. So I usually use that website a lot to help me come up with names and world names and town names and stuff like that.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Definitely.
When you are writing a first draft, do you feel yourself being too much of a perfectionist? Like you have to get the first draft perfect, or do you just like move on, get it done so that you can perfect it in the editing?
I'm a little bit of both. It honestly depends on what the story is. Um, but sometimes I feel if the chapter's not long enough, I'll go back and I'll either combine two chapters into one chapter, or I'll just add on to that chapter. But I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to my writing. Even though I know the first draft is always going to be, not perfect, I always try to get all my thoughts out first. And then if I have more thoughts before I even do my alpha reads or beta reads, I usually go through it and I add stuff that I thought of afterwards. So it usually just depends on if I have more stuff that I want to write in one chapter compared to, just writing it full out. Because if I don't add it, I'll forget it.
I have a big problem with being a perfectionist, and I believe that that's why I have not actually finished a book yet. I'm in the middle of writing three of them, but like I'll write a chapter and then I'll go back to the beginning of that chapter so that it's where I move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'll usually rewrite a chapter maybe 3, 4 times before I like it. So like the beginning of the first chapter in my book, I had to write that like maybe 5 times before I was perfect with it, or I felt it was perfect.
How many books do you have like, currently? Is it just the one, or
Published or unpublished? I have two. So this is actually my debut novel. My other one is a novella. It's kind of a monster human romance, male. Um, it's called A Night with the Devil. That one's basically about a heartbroken young man who, after 2 years, his fiance breaks up with him, and through a prayer of desperation, he kind of summons his guardian devil. So it's kind of like a guardian angel, but instead it's a devil. And basically, what happens is he basically falls in love with his guardian devil, um, and his devil wants him to be his forever. So he has to make the ultimate uh, sin, which is murder and sacrifice. It's a lot of smut. So that was the first one I published. I published that one back in April. So it's been like 6 months between this one and that one. So that's just a very short read. So if you like smutty demons and tail play and 6 foot demons with forked tongues and two male parts.
did it only take you 6 months to write this current one, or had you been working on it before that?
I've been writing it before. It was actually a different title. Um, I started it in 2020. Um, I kind of went through. I thought I was gonna be a traditional published, um, but there were some issues with the company I was with that we really didn't see eye to eye. Um, so I kind of pulled away for a little bit. I thought it was just gonna be shelved, never touched again. But I said I worked too hard for this. I want people to read it. Um, and readers from my last that different title were liking it. So I kind of figured, I switched the title a bit. I kind of changed some stuff of the original story. Um, but I kind of just decided to self-publish it instead of going traditionally published. So it's been about almost 3 years for writing this one. So
It's taken me about 6, so I get it.
yeah, sometimes self doubt was kind of what was bothering me a little bit about publishing it. Um, but after doing ARC reads and beta reads, I was like surprised by how much people wanted to read this book. So I guess I kind of feel blessed that I'm self-published. So
I feel like trying to go traditionally published is almost like you're a monkey with, the guy with the organ grinder. You're just standing there trying to get attention. I just don't want to deal with that.
yeah, it was kind of hard to query literary agents and query publishers, and I kind of felt depressed that I wasn't getting to where I always wanted. So I just kind of, after a while, after it did get accepted, like I said, the publisher and I didn't see eye to eye on a few things. Um, so I kind of just left and just decided I'm gonna self-publish. So I put the work in, and a few months later, just published.
Did you do like the cover and everything yourself, or did you hire somebody?
I actually hired someone, Asterly Designs. She's amazing. Um, she worked so well with me trying to incorporate the vision I had. I'm actually gonna comment her on the bottom. So let's see.
Did you also hire an editor, or did you do any of that yourself?
I did hire an editor. Few rounds I did do myself. I don't think I spelled the cover artist's name right, but um, I did hire an editor, a few editors, just to see different perspectives. Um, and even after that, I still found kind of like typos and mistakes, but I'm okay with that.
Everybody has to like there's hardly any books that don't have typos, even traditional.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's kind of like a little treasure hunt in my books to, find some mistakes, words that are supposed to be capitalized that aren't capitalized, or missing quotation marks or something like that. So, um, I know not every book is going to be perfect, like you said. So, but I kind of am a perfectionist when it comes to it. So, I just want everything to be perfect. But I was just like, it's not going to be perfect, perfect. So let's just throw it out there and we'll see what happens.
The other day, somebody said, Brandon Sanderson has typos in his books, so like,
That makes me feel a little bit better by myself.
huh?
That makes me feel a little bit better about myself when Brandon Sanderson has typos.
Like he's got a team of editors, so
Yeah.
when you're writing, do you like sit down and have like a goal? You're gonna write a certain amount of words a day, or
um, I usually try to write at least 1,000 words a day. But it also depends on how I'm feeling. If I write 500 words a day, that's great. If I even write a sentence, that's great, and I put it away. Um, it really just depends on my mood. So if I'm really into a writing sprint, I can write about 3,000 words a day, um, depending on the novel and how uh, inspired I am to finish.
yeah, I need to make myself a habit of actually like writing a certain amount of words a day, but not having a set schedule is my issue, I think, because like I don't have a job at the moment, so I don't have to do anything. So
Yeah,
that's my issue.
yeah. I think my issue is just Because sometimes I'll write when I'm at work, like on before work or my lunches. So I kind of have like a time limit to how much I can write. um, but I usually just write until I'm tired, to be honest. I can literally spend hours just typing away, and it'll be like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get some sleep.
Yeah. Yep. I can see that. You just get so sucked into it that you lose track of time.
Exactly. It's kind of like reading. You get sucked into the characters and the world, and it's just like, I want one more chapter, just one more chapter.
Yes, when inspiration strikes.
Yeah.
What do you like to do when you're not writing?
um, I'm a gamer. So either mostly video games, or sleep. Um, I'm not really a outdoorsy type of person, so I'm usually just sleeping or playing video games or just hanging out with my wife. Or whenever we do go out somewhere, and I always make sure to bring my phone so I can type on my Google Docs.
So what video games do you like at the moment? Like, what do you think?
um, I'm mostly into fantasy and open world games. Um, right now, I'm not really playing anything, mostly because nothing has really caught my eye yet. But I do want to play that new Dragon Age game that came out. Um, but I'm mostly into fantasy worlds, first person shooters. Um,
Is that the game that I think I saw a TikTok video where there was like a dragon flying over like this town and it was showing how detailed the dragon was? I don't remember what that was called. That might have been.
it might be that one, or it might be Baldur's Gate 3 that you're talking about. What was that?
It wasn't Baldur's Gate, I know that.
Okay, it was probably Dragon Age then.
It looked really cool.
Yeah, it does. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about it, but I'm probably gonna end up buying it anyways.
I was really into Skyrim for a while.
Skyrim is like my go-to fantasy game right now, especially with all the mods and everything. It's just you can get lost in the world like that. Like you don't even have to do the main story, and it could be like 100 hours, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to do the first mission, and you're like at level 100 already, and I just don't kick the chickens, and you'll be fine.
Okay. Another question. What books other than your own are you reading right now, or are you?
um, so I've been kind of a writing slump this year, mostly due to my job. But I most recently started reading Lights Out, only because I got peer pressured by Book Talk. Um, the book I read before that was Bookshops and Bone Dust and Legends and Lattes. Those two are have become my favorite books so far throughout the whole year.
I
Definitely do it, Michelle. It's so good. It's read the narration, read the audiobook. The audiobook makes it so much sweeter. It's so sweet, so cozy. Sometimes I wanted to cry because it was so sweet, I guess. But it's
yeah.
definitely good. Good
I
series.
I saw some words. I saw some reviews for Legends and Lattes, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna need to read that.
Yeah, it's really good. I want to get hardback uh the hardbacks that they came out with. It's like a new uh what's it called? Hardback edition, I think. So I want to try to get that.
Yeah. Our World is good. I heard that they were that Pokemon was suing them.
Yeah. Pokemon's trying to sue Palworld, but um, I haven't really got into it, so I probably won't touch it. To be honest, I've been disappointed in the past Pokemon games as well. So, um, yeah.
Um, who's your favorite author?
um, for now, I'm gonna have to say Tolkien. Only because he inspired me to become a writer. Um, but I don't necessarily have a favorite author. I don't think I can narrow it down to one. Um, Honestly, if I read a book, I kind of just like, oh, I'm just gonna pick this up and read it. Sometimes I just like, oh, I'm just gonna pick this up and read it. Sometimes I don't pay attention to about the author until like the very end, and it's like, if I like the book, I'm like, okay, I need more from this author, so I'll usually just look up the author afterwards. But it's usually the title that grips me. So I don't necessarily have a favorite author. Um, but if I had to choose, it would probably be Tolkien.
It's kind of like trying to pick your favorite. Like there's so many.
Yeah, yeah. There's like I don't like to kind of have a favorite. I have a variety of favorites. So
If I had to answer it, I would probably say someone that most people have not heard of, is Kim Harrison. Her series is called the Hollow series. It's about a witch that's a bounty hunter that has a bounty out on her, so she's trying to
ooh.
not get caught. But that's where my tattoo came from. It's actually from
You're gonna have to message me those books because it sounds interesting already.
There's like 18 of them, so you'll be in for the long haul.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
I listen to like year. I'll listen to all 18 books.
Yeah, I prefer more audio only because I can't really sit down and pay attention to a book. Um, I'll read like a few pages and I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna do something else. But if it's an audio, I can listen to it and do something else at the same time. So
I have the patience to sit down and actually read a book. I just usually don't have the time to sit down and read a book.
I don't have both.
Listen to audio while I like do dishes and cook and clean the house.
Hmm.
Can you think of, or do you know off the top of your head, the best review that you have gotten from a reader so far?
um, so the best review I got was the latest one. Um, she kind of compared the book to uh, a spinoff of True Blood. If it was directed by the guy who did Van Helsing, the 2000 Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. So that kind of like just to be compared to something as popular as True Blood, it's kind of like an oh my god feeling. Like it's only been out a few days and people are already comparing it to True Blood. Um, so that's kind of like the biggest one so far. That kind of huh? What was that?
That made your day.
Yeah, it definitely did make my day. I even kind of tagged like HBO, like, hey, if you need a new vampire spinoff, I'm available. My book is here.
That's so funny because like when I was hearing the description of it, like vampire stripper, I was like, it was on the tip of my tongue what that reminded me of, but I think that's what it was. The True Blood, yeah, that seems. It sounds like
I'm sorry.
that sounds like it would go with True Blood, like it would the same universe.
Yeah, I can kind of see it being like a spinoff in another part of the world. Um, but vampires are kind of a kept secret in my world, mostly because they're being hunted by uh, order of vampire hunters that Van Helsing actually started. So that's a twist.
Is it on? Does it take place on Earth, or is it like a?
Yes.
Is it like modern?
Yeah. So yeah, it's modern. It's modern. Modern to 2024 ish type. Um, and it takes place in Las Vegas. So that's kind of.
Okay. Are vampires the only paranormal creatures in this story?
So no. Um, they're the only. They're not the only ones mentioned, but they're the base of the whole story. So the female main character Victoria, she kind of lets Nathan, the male main character, know, hey, yeah, so I was saved this witch who was being attacked by witch hunters, and she kind of gave me a potion that kind of sedated my thirst for human blood for a while. So there's mentions of witches and there's mentions of other monsters that go bump in the night, but vampires are kind of like the main thing. Um, the sequel, which I am planning to write, I think I'm going to incorporate some of those uh, other species into it. So the main character sees that, oh, it's not just vampires or witches, and it's just a lot more of uh, the paranormal world that was hidden from him for such a long time.
That is so cool. I can't wait to get it. I wish I could order a copy of it. I would.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to send you a copy.
That would probably be super expensive. Sending a book to Europe, it was like it was gonna charge me $25 for a book. I was like, hell.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and try to see what's going on with that. But if you do have Kindle, it's free on KU
Oh, it is
right
on.
now. So yeah, it's on KU and it's completely free.
Keep hitting my table with my chair and then. Okay, so that's cool. And you said so you are gonna be planning on writing a book two. Is it gonna be with the same characters?
Yeah, it'll be with the same characters. It'll be through the same point of view as Nathan, dealing with his new life. I don't want to give away the ending, um, but um, it'll bring more into some stuff that was mentioned in the first book. I don't want to give a little bit too away, but the title is going to be When Dead Hearts Bleed, so it's going to be a little bit more dealing with Nathan as he's dealing with his new life, and bringing some old baddies back to life as well. So
I like the name.
yeah.
Um, have you gotten any like super bad reviews? And how do you deal with them if you do?
I think I've gotten only one bad arc review. I wouldn't really call it bad arc review. Um, even if it was kind of like a 1 star thing, I still kind of feel blessed that someone even rated it a 1 star. Bye, Chris. um, but I really don't look at negative reviews. Even if I do, it's kind of like a building experience. You know, seeing what they didn't like about the story, it kind of helps me prepare to what not to do for the next story, I guess, or what more I can add into the next story. Um, so I kind of take it like a grain of salt, you know. It doesn't really bother me as much because I know not everybody's gonna like, not everybody's gonna like your books or, the products you put out. So, um, I kind of try to stay away from negative reviews,
Yeah.
mostly because reviews are for readers and not for authors. So, um, but at the same time, I kind of want to see how I can improve more. For the next time around. So if there's something that they didn't like the writing style or or anything maybe I can improve on my writing style or some characters or stuff like that.
That's the best answer to that question. That is good.
I mean, after a little, kind of like emotional, like turmoil inside, like go cry in a corner or something. But
I have to let it get to you at least a little bit, right?
yeah, it's like, yeah, just a tiny bit, but then it's just like, okay, move on, and it's just like learn from those negative reviews.
Mhm. So, I know you said that the story takes place in Las Vegas. So, is have you been to Las Vegas?
Yeah, I've been to Las Vegas a couple times, and so the reason why I chose Las Vegas is mostly because uh, I like Vegas. You don't really see a lot of places taking place. It's either in Seattle or Los Angeles or New York or something like that. So I kind of want to do um, something different with the story. And Las Vegas was kind of like just the first place that came to mind. Um, so yeah, I've been to Vegas a couple times. My mom actually moved up there recently, so now if I go up and visit her, I can be like, oh, this is where my book takes place.
I have technically been to Las Vegas. It's where my mom got pregnant with me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can count that. You can count that.
So, did you have to do a lot of research on Las Vegas before writing the book?
um, yeah, so like there's a scene with the stratosphere involved, so I kind of had to like do some research on, how tall it is, and some areas um of the stratosphere. I kind of had to do some research on the strip, because that's where you see the main characters drive around a lot, especially with his best friend Andreas. He kind of works on the strip in the bar, so I kind of had to research, how the buildings were and stuff like that, because it has been a while since I've been to Vegas, so. Um, a little bit of research has been done for to make it as realistic as possible, and not just like, oh, someone's just describing Las Vegas. Hasn't really been to Las Vegas, so I kind of wanted to make it realistic to where it's actually like you're actually in Las Vegas.
That's why I don't write Earth, because I don't want people to. My book is true because I said so.
Yeah, exactly. If it was a fantasy book, it's just like, oh, you can do whatever you want to do with fantasy, especially like high fantasy. But yeah, so whenever I do a book and I want it to be put in a specific place, um, so like for example, my latest one actually does take place in Los Angeles. And I live close to Los Angeles. I've been to Los Angeles a few times, but even then, it's like you still need to do your research on some city streets and locations of various places. So I do research on these places where these settings are going to be.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It can be. I like learning new things. So if I learn something new about a place, it's kind of like a plus one for me. So
Um, do you have a favorite secondary character in your book?
I would have to say his best friend Andreas. Um, Andreas is kind of like his brother, the main character's brother. They grew up together. After his mom died, he kind of moved in with him and his mother, who the mother has him called Thea. Um, Even though that's not a name, that's kind of like how that's what he calls her. He doesn't call her mom because she's not her mom. She's not his mom, but she's a mother figure. So she has him call her Thea. Um,
which
and
means
Andres, huh?
which means ant in
Yeah, yeah. So, um, he Andreas is kind of like the comic relief of the whole thing. Um, he's just a goofball and kind of a pervert in a little bit like that. So there's a lot of bantering before back and forth between them. Um, there's a scene where he gets really drunk and Nathan has to carry him into the bed, and he's just like, "Oh, give me a kiss," and everything like that. And he's all drunk, and um, so Andres was really fun to write. I kind of wanted to have him have a big part in this, mostly because I do plan to incorporate him into the second book. So there is a little bit more information on that. Um, but Andres was really fun to write. Tia, I can't speak. His Tia was also fun to write. She's very empathetic and very caring and nurturing. Kind of a badass a little bit as well. But I would have to say Andreas was my favorite character, second character to write besides Nathan.
cool. I have a character like in one of my books that is super sarcastic, and she always makes fun of my main character because she's a witch but she can't control her power, so she ends up just blowing stuff up. And so my side
That sounds
character
interesting.
Stevani, she's always like, "Are you ready to look up now?" Because instead of going to school,
I'm gonna I'm gonna have to read that.
when it's finished, you can, yeah. I actually had some people say, "You really like this character. Why is she not just the main character?" And I'm like, "Because if the entire book was in her point of view, it would be too much. It would just be too much sarcasm, I think." So I have
you should
to,
do a s- you should do a spin-off just on her point of view or her own story.
I wanted her to be the funny side character, but I did kind of end up just really liking her and writing her a lot. So they might have a point that she should have just been the main character, but
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt with Andreas. Originally, I was going to X him off, um, just to like as a kind of like gasping moment, like, "Oh, how could you?" But I just grew to love him so much that I didn't want to kill off a favorite character like that. Um, so and readers have been telling me that, oh, he needs to be in the second one. If you make a sequel, he has to have a bigger part in the sequel. So um, ideas have been brainstorming through what I can do with him and Nathan. As soon as you read it, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
I can't wait to read it. Honestly, I really can't. Um, what do you think is the best thing about being an author?
Honestly, I think it's just creating these vast worlds. Um, these characters, especially when writing fantasy, you have to kind of create like a history of your world, the lore of it. Um, so with high fantasy, I think you can get really deep into it, as much as you want. Whereas kind of maybe um, urban fantasy, you kind of have a limit. You can still get deep into world building, but not as much as you can high fantasy. So I think it's just um, through the whole world building experience is it. I think that's my favorite part of being an author is just creating new worlds and new characters and stuff like that.
I like that. Yeah. The other day, I said my answer to that would be I get to stare at a computer screen and hallucinate.
Yeah, you hallucinate and talk to your imaginary friends and write them down on paper, and they become kind of like your real friends.
And it makes it look like you're insane because you're actually doing something. But no, you're just crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, so what would you say is the opposite? Would be the hardest thing about you?
um, I would have to say marketing. I can't market for anything. I try, Canva and creating all these epic trailers and stuff like that, and sometimes it gets just so draining, that it kind of puts more depression because it's like you're marketing so hard to get your book out there, or you're wondering if people are gonna like it. Um, so I think marketing is gonna be the least thing I hate about being an author.
The thing about that is, like, most authors are introverts. We sit alone in like our little office and type on a computer,
Hmm.
and then all of
And
us
then you have to get.
sell ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, you have to, uh, show yourself and give speech about your book, and so it's kind of just if I could just pay someone to market for me, I would. So, so I don't have to deal with that as much.
Yeah, that would be like you'd have to sell a whole bunch of books first to make the money to pay somebody to sell your books.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get at least 10 sales by the end of the month, um, and then at least 20 sales by the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, hopefully this helps.
Yeah.
And Michelle says she's a 100% introvert. It's not that scary though. Like, we're on here talking. It's not too bad.
Just a little social awkwardness. That's fine.
At the end of the world.
Yeah.
So what would you say is what is the genre of the book? It's fantasy, but it's not. Right? 'Cause it's
I would
horror.
call it urban paranormal romance. Mostly because it takes place in modern times, and it's dealing with vampires and stuff like that. So I would consider it to be urban paranormal.
Yeah, that makes sense. We got through this super fast. Like, this usually takes me.
I didn't even prepare for the questions either.
Okay, when you're writing and you get to like the editing phase, you do like a certain edits. How do you finally decide? Okay, the book is done. I can publish it.
um. So what I'll do is I'll usually get done with the first draft. I'll have my wife will usually read it, or she'll request to read it. So she's kind of like my alpha reader, first. Um, so she'll be reading it, and then she'll give me some inputs, and then I'll kind of just edit it myself a second time, and then I'll look for betas, and then after the first round of betas, I'll go back and change some stuff, and then I'll actually hire an editor. Um, usually editors they charge for like 2 rounds of edits, depending on how deep it has to go. So after those 2 rounds of edits, I'll do another set of beta readers, and then another round of final edits. Um, so I would say like maybe 3 or 4 times before, maybe 5 before it's actually, okay, it's done. There's nothing more I can add to it. There's nothing more I can take away from it. So, I usually try to give myself at least 5 times, like 5 drafts before, I finally say it's done. It's going to be published.
I was wondering if it's like when you have someone read it and they don't give you too many issues, then
Yeah, if they don't give me too many issues, like so like the first rounds are usually like character development or plot, details and stuff like that, and then I kind of go through like grammar stuff toward the end of it. So my main focus in the first round is enjoyment, um, any like plot holes or things I can add or things I can take away before I really focus on the whole grammar and spelling issues. But if there are no issues to in those events, I kind of just skip that session and just go straight to the like the line editing and the grammars and spelling and making sure that it's polished before. So sometimes it can be like 3 rounds before, or even before, um, or even the 5 rounds. So again, it just depends on the like I said, the minor issues like the enjoyment and stuff like that.
Just real quick, it's
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna show my book off real quick. Or my notebook, rather. It's not an actual novel, it's a story building notebook. It's for authors to create their own books. But I have, it's like you fill it out. It asks questions. It has character profiles.
I definitely need that because character profiles are like the hardest thing for me to to do.
Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3 pages of character profile. So it's like all it talks about.
Wow.
Their childhood, character arc. You can do like past, present, future, what you want them to go through the book. And then I have like pages and pages of that, for all of the different characters that you want. And then it gets into world building.
I love that.
It asks
I'm gonna have to.
World, what the climate's like, the government, what kind of, if it's a fantasy world, you can put like the different kinds of.
See, if I was doing high fantasy, I definitely need something like that because.
It even like asks you questions about the magic. What are the downfalls of the magic? How does it work? Who can use it? All that different type of stuff. And then
I'm gonna have to find that. You're gonna have to message me the link.
I can do that. And I also do go through the plotting too. So you can. I broke it down into different types of plotting of different acts, the beginning, the turning point, climax, all of that.
Yeah, I have a big problem with outlining and so.
It asks questions about the plotting, and if any of it doesn't pertain to you, just blank. And the most important part that I put in the beginning of this is, do it in whatever order you want. You don't have to start with the characters. You don't have to start. If you think of the plot first, go to the plot. If you think of the world first, do that, and then do the characters later. Flop around.
Yeah, usually I do think of a plot before anything. So I'll come up with the plot, then I'll come up with characters afterwards, which is kind of a weird phase to go through. Instead of, usually people come up with the characters first or the title first. Usually I don't even come up with the title until after the story is done.
Me too. Well, I write a few chapters and then I'm like, okay, so now I put like a title, and I put a permanent title for 2 of them. One of them I still can't decide. I might just name it my main character's name.
Yeah, so the one I'm currently writing is kind of like a high fantasy about a squire who trains to be a knight, and he it's kind of like a classic tale of light versus dark, mixed with Arthurian legend. But basically, he finds out that he's not just a squire; he has magic in him. So he kind of sets out this adventure to not only save the kingdom from a malevolent dark force that's coming to wipe them all out, but to learn more about his magic as well. So it's kind of the title I have right now is called The Squire's Ember, but I don't know if I'm gonna keep that. But it's kind of your classic Arthurian type Lord of the Rings mixed with Merlin type of magic system going around.
Cool. If you were wanting to look at these, all the same on the inside, but they come in different colors. I have this one up here.
I'm definitely gonna have to look that up for sure because that sounds very helpful.
I hope it's helpful. It's the I made it for me because to help me write books, and I was like, well, I might as well sell them, right?
Yeah, I'd buy a few copies.
um, well, I think that is about all the questions I have for you, unless you had anything else you wanted to say, or if you want to, since the people at the beginning are not here anymore, if you want to describe your book again for them.
Yeah, so my debut is called When Dead Hearts Beat. It's a urban paranormal romance, vampire romance about a workaholic who falls in love with a stripper vampire, and ends up becoming a vampire hunter in order to save her from her maker after her maker comes back and tries to take her as his vampire bride. Um, it's adult. It's spicy. There's a lot of smut in it. Like half the first act is like 99% smut. um, the second act is where the plot really starts to pick up. He's training as a vampire hunter, um, while his girlfriend is basically being held captive by her maker, and he just feels kind of useless, not being able to do anything. And then the third act is basically the whole climatic showdown and some. It's kind of like a full. It kind of comes a full circle of some things that are introduced in the first act. Um, so it's a pretty great read as far as I've been hearing. It's been compared to a not a Twilight, a True Blood spinoff with by the guy who did Van Helsing. So that's kind of like the highest honor I've gotten so far. So I do plan on having a sequel. Sequel is going to be When Dead Hearts Bleed. It's going to be some uh, stuff that's in the first book that I don't want to spoil. Um, but it's going to incorporate some of the first book into the second book, and it's basically going to be how the main character Nathan is dealing with his life after the fact.
That sounds great. I can't wait to read it.
I'm excited for you to read it. If you can't get it on paperback, it is free on KU if you have Kindle Unlimited.
All right. Well, super nice talking to you. I had fun.
Nice talking to you too. I had fun. Thank you very much for the interview, of course.
If you want to get in on another one, by the way, because I'm going to be doing some with like multiple authors at one point, just let me know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll be fun.
Okay. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Michelle, you have a good day.